The principle of most accents is one of delay. And you'll see that if we slightly quicken the breath and the speed of the movement before we delay, we get an accent. We're going to look at 4 to illustrate this. Here's the regular pattern. And I'm going to produce an accent on 1 simply by increasing the speed of the breath on the preparatory beat of 4 and synchronizing the arm movement with the breathing. Here we go. You'll see that I just increase the speed and synchronize the arm motion with it. We're now going to produce the accent on 2. Regular pattern first of all. And to produce the accent on 2, I'm going to take the in-breath on the first beat, which of course is the one that precedes the second, and here we go. You'll also notice that I pull slightly away from the beat, as we did when we were delaying the second beat before we give the accent. Watch again. We'll give the accent on 3 now, and of course the same principle applies. The quick breath comes on the second beat. Here we go. And lastly, to produce the accent on the 4th beat of the bar, we have to increase the speed of the arm and the speed of the breath on 3. Here we go. And you might also notice just a little movement in the torso to help give space to come away from that beat to give the hook into the 4th. Watch once more. Of course this works equally for 3 and for 2, so we take briefly a pattern of 3 and we're going to give the accent on 1, on 2, and on 3, and if we want to place that accent on 3 or on 4, which is the last beat in the bar, the upbeat, it's very important that we come high enough in order to be able to place it. That's part of the reason for the little movement in the body there. And on 2, same thing, regular beat first, and we're going to accent 2, and the accent comes on 1 now, Once we've established the stance and the feeling of connection of the arms with the breathing, the feeling of the weight, and a familiarity with the basic patterns, retaining the link outwards with the fingers, we're ready to extend that with the baton. For better or worse, this is our instrument. It's not much, is it? Just a length of wood with a handle. What is important, however, is that it's made well. This stick is made of wood, not fiberglass, and as you can see, the handle is made of cork. It's 16 inches long, which is a good average length for a stick. What's most important is that it's well balanced. The balancing point should come just beyond the handle here. And the stick should be straight, which you can check simply by looking along it. When we hold the stick, it's important that we don't cover the balancing point with the fingers. And we're going to examine the hold of the stick now in the studio. There's a difference between conducting holding a stick and conducting using a stick. I'm going to demonstrate first conducting merely holding a stick. Sometimes the arm can become a bit wooden here, and sometimes it tends to go floppy. Now let's look at the difference between that and conducting using the baton. We're going to look at now how this technique is built up, and the first thing is the hold of the stick. We can hold it, first of all, simply by taking a bow hold and then collapsing it, or you can take the stick into the palm of the hand like that on a diagonal line and close thumb and fingers behind. So it's going to be first finger, thumb next, and then the rest of the fingers follow on. It's important that the thumb stays flat. In other words, this is a collapsed bow hold. What we don't want is that, because it tends to create tension in the hand. So there's the hold of the stick, and we turn it over like so. And what we're aiming to do now is to keep a good line from the elbow to the point of the stick in all the movements we make. The players must know where the sound's going to happen. Compare these differences in beating. Firstly this, where we have a legato beat, there's connection between the beats, and the sound is arriving clearly at the bottom of each beat to be carried onto the next. Or this, which is a staccato beat, but still with the sound arriving clearly at the bottom and the breath between. Compare that now with this, where the focus of the baton becomes indeterminate and it's rather hard to see where the sound arrives. Or this, where the precipitous pulling up of the arm makes it difficult to achieve any sort of line and breath between the beats, and the sound is tending to happen at the top rather than the bottom. We're going to do an exercise now to help us feel the contact with the sound using simply a hard surface and a couple of books. The books are there to put the stick at the right angle with the arm. If they weren't, we'd get this, and bringing the arm up, we'd have a rather broken line here. So the books just raise it to the right level. And first of all, we're going to feel the contact through the finger into the point, just by applying a little bit of pressure. And then we're just going to let the arm lift and drop, nice and relaxed. So it's lifting and being allowed to fall, not lifting and being forced down. There needs to be a little bit of control so it doesn't just drop like so. But it's a lift and a controlled drop. So where the stick arrives on the books is where the contact with the sound's going to be. Let's look now at the sequence between the wrist and the forearm. So it starts, the point of the stick moves first from the wrist, the forearm comes up, the forearm comes down, and the point of the stick arrives last. So in other words, the point of the stick is the first thing to go and the last thing to arrive. Look at that in sequence now. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I reverse that sequence, you get this. 1, 2, 3, 4. This creates a problem because instead of the point of the stick leading, the wrist leads, and there's an ambiguity about where the focus is. So I'll do it correctly once more. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that when you lift the arm off the table, you should be able to re-establish that sequence just in space. 1, 2, 3, 4. And to make that more fluid, and there we have one in a bar. And if I reverse the sequence, you'll see how much ambivalence that creates in the stick. One's not quite sure where the sound is there, but once the point of the stick comes at the bottom on this line that we've established from the elbow to the point of the stick, it's secure. We're now going to look at the available movements of the wrist and fingers so that we can achieve full flexibility of the baton. This is our basic line, along the forearm, through the first finger to the point of the stick. From this position, the available movements of the wrist are as follows. Up and back to the center line, to the left, back to center, to the right, back to center, circular route to the right, back to the center, circular route to the left and back, a half circle to the top and back, a half circle to the top in the other direction and back, a tulip shape where we take it out to the furthest extent in a semicircle, back to center, the other way, and then full circle in both directions. We can use exactly the same exercises to help the flexibility of the stick through the first finger and the thumb. So we can take the stick up, back to centre, to the left, back to centre and to the right, and then approach all these by loops to the right, to the left, up and up to the left, the tulip shape to the furthest extent on the right and up and to the left and back and full circle and full circle. It's important to make the point that whether the first finger is mobilized or not, we need always to retain the contact between the point of the first finger and the point of the baton.